Welcome to Behind the Debut, a podcast to shine a light on first-time authors and their journeys to publication. I'm your host, Michelle Reeves, a traditionally and self-published author myself, and in each episode we'll dive into the experiences of debut writers, how they got started, the challenges they faced, and what it really takes to bring a first book into the world. While most podcast airtime is reserved for best-selling authors, this is a space for new voices, authors who might not otherwise have the chance to share their story. In today's episode, I'm delighted to welcome Michelle J., a fantasy author from upstate New York. Her writing journey began at a very young age, but her young adult fantasy debut novel, The Divide That Binds Us, came out in May of this year. As you'll hear, this episode was recorded before publication. Welcome to the show, Michelle. Can you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your debut novel and what inspired you to write it?
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me. My name is Michelle J., and I am an author who writes a lot of fun fantasy. And my first book, The Divide That Binds Us, comes out May 16th by Midnight Meadow Publishing. I've been writing since I was 8 years old. I had gotten my first video game called Kingdom Hearts, and it was for my birthday. And I was like, what the heck is this? Because I didn't really know about the game. My cousin did, and she was like screaming next to me. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what this is. But she actually helped introduce me into this world of storytelling. And that's why I started creative writing when I was 8 years old, making these fun little stories that I didn't know where they were going. But eventually, after a bunch of unfulfilled stories, I did decide to write The Divide That Binds Us. I was inspired by this show called Ed. Some people call it Scryed, but I call it Ed. It's an anime that was released, I think, back in like early 2000s. I can't even remember off the top of my head. But I really like the concept of people with these unique abilities and, being able to use them through mental will. And so I like the idea of that for my story, which you will, if you read it or anyone else reads it, they are people in the world, and they are called spirit users, and they use their powers, which varies from person to person through mental will. One of the main characters has lightning as his ability, so he can generate, wield it, manipulate it in any way he wants to. And so that show, and watching it, I think I have a rewatch that I do like every so many years. Like, I've got to rewatch this because it's like a comfort show for me. That was a big inspiration for writing my story.
I just love that you were inspired at such a young age to start writing, Michelle. And I mean, I always had a notebook and a pen or some paints and paper in my hand from a really young age as well. So definitely get that. But I love how you were inspired by gaming. That's a subject close to my heart, with my middle grade series being set in Minecraft. But it's so fun that you were able to, learn about storytelling through gaming rather than, kind of the other way around, like, writing and then it being turned into a story. It's kind of going the other way, which I think is, it's really, people shouldn't worry, I don't think, so much about the whole gaming world in terms of, what it's doing for young people. I think there are a lot of dangers, don't get me wrong, but I think there is a real element of storytelling in a lot of these role-playing games that is teaching storycraft in a really interesting way. So I really, that's very inspiring to hear you say that, Michelle. Did you do a lot of planning before you started writing the book, or were you a bit more of a pantser?
I didn't plan extensively. I do plan now, but I was definitely a pantser back then. Like, I wrote this story like over 10 years ago when I was still in high school, and I definitely didn't plan it out. I just wrote on a whim, and that's probably why the first draft came out as terrible as it did. And I didn't even really know anything about like the writing community or anything like that. It just kind of came to me, and then I finished it, and then I kind of revised it. But no, it was definitely pantser all the way for that story.
Wow, I hadn't realised that you'd actually written the book when you were at high school. That's amazing to have written, a full length novel so young. Were there any particular chapters or scenes or characters that you found difficult or especially rewarding or enjoyable to write?
There there are a couple of chapters that are hard to write, but I would say a character that was difficult to write is one named Katarzyna. So she has her own POV in the story, but she's also kind of like more of a side character than a main character, and she is, in my opinion, a little bit insufferable. And it probably is because writing her was difficult because a lot of me was put in her, and she's just kind of annoying and exhausting. And like, some people may feel different, but I think when I put pieces of myself into characters, it's easy to write. But when I put a lot of myself into a character, then it becomes more difficult because, like, depending on what aspect I put into that character, it may be like something I'm not favorable of, like a flaw of mine, or something that I am favorable of. And because a lot of my flaws were put into Katarzyna, it was hard to write because I was just getting annoyed every time I had to write a scene with her in it.
That's so funny because my next project is going to be an adult novel rather than a middle grade novel, and my main character, I am absolutely planning to put bits of myself into her, and I'm already thinking that I'm going to not enjoy writing her so much because I'm going to just see all of my flaws in her. And so that's just really funny that you brought that up because it really resonates with me a lot. How much feedback did you get? Did feedback play a role in shaping the manuscript, and how did that kind of come about?
I would say a role that played into shaping my manuscript with feedback is it was a very big role. Before I queried it and before it got picked up by a publisher, I did have a few beta readers who gave me a lot of great insight on how to shape up this manuscript. So like I said before, like 10 years ago when I wrote this story, I had no one. I thought this was the greatest it's ever going to be. And I queried it with grammatical errors. It wasn't tight at all. There was so much info dumping. So like having people look at my story and tell me, hey, these are these issues was a big, big help because one, it helped me break out of like my story is perfect as it is and accept that there are flaws that need to be fixed. And also number two, like I had the opportunity to stop marrying my story as it is. Like you can never marry your story as is because it is destined to be changed a gazillion more times after you finish that last draft or that last revision. So I was able to unmarry it and then have like major revisions and like rewrites that went into it based off of like feedback I got, and it was super helpful. So it like tying in with editing and revisions, like I would say it was smooth because feedback by chapters is nice. Like line by line feedback is also really good. So like pairing that and like opening the document with the feedback I have, I kind of just like go through each point and see like if it's something I need to shape up on or if it's something that like I like, but I want to fix it up a little bit, if that makes any sense.
What would we do without our beta readers? They're just so amazing that they take the time to really help us shape manuscripts. Just fantastic to have them in your corner. And I really respect you for that mindset shift that you made in order to move forward from that initial draft, because it kind of goes one of two ways, doesn't it? Either we think what we've written is a pile of trash, or we finish it and we think, hey, this is the next best thing. This is perfect in every way. And it can be a bit of a challenge to then get feedback that's critical, but as you say, it's so important. So amazing that you were able to take that on board and use it as part of your editing process. Did you have any surprising discoveries about yourself during the writing or the completion of the book?
One surprising discovery, and it's not even a bad discovery, was that originally I was writing the main characters with more, I don't know how to say, like more intensity of like I'm I'm like maybe like attracted to you kind of vibe. But then I realized because my main characters were telling me, I can't even remember when. I was writing and I was doing revisions, and my main character Alice was like, "Listen, I don't want a love interest. I'm not into that. I don't feel that kind of way about anybody." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." So, like, it was so strange. It came to my head like I was having this conversation in my head with my main character, Alice Reed, and she's telling me like, "Do not give me a love interest in this book. Like, I don't want it. I don't feel that way. I don't care for it," kind of thing. And I was like, "Okay, cool." So Alice, really didn't have anything going for herself in terms of like relationships besides her friends, but she made it explicitly clear to me that she was ace. And I was like, I love that for you. And, shortly after I was really going through the manuscript, Rio was like, "Hey, I'm Demi. I need this for me." And I'm like, "Bet I can do that for you." It was surprising, but I'm going to say again, it was a great surprise because they came to me and people will say like your characters will talk to you, and they definitely did. And I wish I could remember that day, but I do remember that I was writing and I was like stunned. I was like too stunned to speak.
And isn't that just the coolest thing when your characters can take on so much of a life of their own that they start telling you how they want to be portrayed, and what I guess it's kind of what feels most natural for that character in the scenario you've put them in and the world building that you've done. So yeah, that's such a cool thing, Michelle. Honestly, super, super cool. Let's talk a bit about promotion. Not everybody loves marketing, but do you like promoting your book, and how have you approached that?
I've approached promoting my book and being almost like myself in how I talk in my captions and like the things I like to do. So I think one thing about promoting my book that I wanted to make sure I kept intact was that I am someone who is just kind of cringy or corny, I guess you can say. I don't really have the zhuzh or the aura. I probably have like negative 75 aura points compared to like other cooler people. But I kind of lean into that too. Like, I will talk the way I talk in person in my post, and if I'm talking to other people, and I will also make my content around that. Like, I like unhinged stuff. I like, you know, funny posts, silly posts. And that's kind of how I've leaned into promoting my book. Like, if people look at my Instagram, which I'm most active there, they'll see like my character reveals will have like these text posts like that you'll see on Tumblr or something to like describe the vibe the character gives. And then, I would do the character reveal or something. It's something like out of left field about it. I actually enjoy marketing my book, as like tired as it can be, because I'm having fun with it, and I have like a great community supporting me too, who are also interested in my story as well. So I think if you find a balance between like how you want to market your book and promote it and like putting a little bit of yourself in it, it can be fun. It's not to say that you won't get burnt out, because you can if you do it a lot. And so, yeah, I am tired. It's almost release month, and I, I still want to promote it, and I love the book so much, but I'm also ready for it to be out. That's one of the harder things when you're marketing or promoting your book. The length of time between when you start and to the finish line could vary. And so it also kind of gauges like your energy levels and like how you're able to like keep that momentum going. So that's one of my things.
Yeah, totally, totally get that. And, it's so refreshing to hear you talking about marketing in that way, and that you lean into your own personality and don't try and conform to maybe what the publishing industry, what the expectations of the publishing industry are for authors, and the kind of people we are meant to be, in inverted commas, and you just yourself, and you will find your community, and you obviously have by being yourself. So I respect that so much. And oh God, I'm so excited for you with the book coming out. It really looks fantastic. It is on my on my reading list, and I think it's going to be a great launch. But let's just wind it back a little bit for a second before we get totally excited about publication dates. And if you were to give your pre-published self a bit of advice, what would that be?
Oh man, if I could go back in time, well, pre-published Michelle will probably not understand anything I'm saying or will be too stubborn to accept what I'm saying, first of all. But I'd still tell her, like, listen, you need to make friends and you need to read a lot. That's something I wish I had started doing more. Like, I did read here and there. And then, I definitely read the mandatory stuff that, like, you would get in school. But I didn't have a community right away and I was very shy. But I loved writing and then I hated sharing my writing with other people. I would also tell her, like, don't be afraid to share your writing. One time I had in high school a creative writing class, which I thrived in. I loved it so much. And I wrote a story about a very intense dream I had. And, the teacher gave me this great feedback. He loved it, even though the dream didn't make any sense at all. He was just like, this is terrifying and haunting. And I was like, yeah. I loved the gratification I got from sharing my story. And I wish I had done it more with people who I was close to, because I probably would have gotten that push more to pursue my dreams sooner than I actually started doing it. I did take a break after the first round of querying because I didn't know what the heck I was doing before I took it more seriously later on, before it got picked up. So I would tell, younger Michelle, share your work with people who you trust. Don't be afraid. Read more, make more friends in the community because it really does matter.
I think that's great advice for anyone, not even just authors, but anyone. Read more, make more friends, don't be afraid to share yourself. I think we could probably all take that advice a bit more, couldn't we? But, as authors, I think it's probably one of the things that a lot of us struggle with is that sharing our work and, the fear of failure, the fear of getting negative feedback. And I think a lot of perfectionism creeps into that. Certainly for me, it does anyway. So lovely advice there for your pre-published self. So thank you. Can you tell us what's next for you? What's coming up? What can we get excited about?
What's next for me is, I have a tea heist whip that I'm actively querying. And it's basically about a group of people coming together to save the main character's best friend from a sleeping curse. They have to steal this rare tea plant from the mayor's vault. So it has a lot of fun personalities put together and a lot of fun with tea and drinking tea, because I do like tea. I don't drink coffee. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't do that. I can, an espresso is fine and, a latte here and there, but like just outright coffee, I can't do. So like I wanted to do something more towards like what I like and more of myself into it. So I like drinking tea. So like this group, it's a spy, witch, thief, and assassin comes together and they have to like get this tea plant to save their friend from her sleeping curse, because she does go to sleep every 3 years and wakes up for 3 weeks. So if they don't do it, then, she goes back to sleep. So that's one thing I'm working on. Another thing I'm working on is the sequel to The Divide That Binds Us. I do have a title pending for it, but I'm not sharing it with anybody, so it is a secret. But I am working on the outline and drafting it for my publisher, so then we can get the ball rolling for that, as soon as I survive the release of the first book. And then I also want to work on my first adult fantasy about killing gods, and someone with a special talent is summoned to meet the gods to entertain them, but she wants to kill them all because she believes her cousin is dead. It's not a very complex concept, but I don't want to get too much into it because it's not fully fleshed out yet, but it's something I'm really excited about. And also the opportunities that I've been given to attend any festivals so far this year and next year, very excited about, because that means I get to meet new people and make new friends. So a lot of things coming up this year and next year that I'm really excited about in my journey, and hopefully I would probably see more people around.
Wow, you have got a lot going on. I'm in awe. Hugely excited about an adult novel, and the second in the series already. That's really interesting, and bit disappointed there's no coffee involved in the tea heist, but totally get why. I know coffee's not everyone's favourite drink, but again, that one sounds really interesting too. I love the creativity of the projects that you're working on. It's been really special having you on the show today, Michelle. Where can people find you and your work?
People can find me on Instagram mainly. I'm more chronically online than I like to admit. And then I'm also on Threads a lot more. I'm not on Blue Sky as much, but I am on it. I check it once a week. And I'm on TikTok a little bit, like a couple days a week. So those are like my main four. I am not on Twitter or X, whatever we want to call it. I deleted my account at the beginning of this year, 2025, because I was just pretty much done with it and it's just not worth being on anymore. So Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok are my main ones that you can find me on. And I will probably at some point talk about my book everywhere. It is available on the publisher's website, Midnight Meadow Publishing. It is also available for pre-order on other retailers like Barnes & Noble, or you can also request it at your local indie bookstore.
Oh, that's great. And I think this episode is going to be coming out once the book's already published, so I will be sure to put all the links for connecting with Michelle and for buying her first book in the show notes, so you can go and check them out straight away. Just wanted to say finally, thanks so much again for being on the show today, and really good luck with everything you've got coming up, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. This was really great. I enjoyed speaking with you. And thank you so much and have a great day.
That's it for this episode of Behind the Debut. A huge thank you to Michelle for sharing her journey with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with a fellow book lover. It really helps new authors get discovered. You can find out more about today's guest, including where to find their book, in the show notes. And if you're a debut author yourself and would love to be featured, email me at michelle@michellereeveswrites for more details. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep writing, keep dreaming, and keep turning the page on your own story.